UCLA set to enter the Big Ten this season, and although recruiting may have not exactly been the number one priority in the previous regime, it appears to be priority number 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and so on, with DeShaun Foster now at the head of the program to talk all things UCLA and the recruiting surge of the Bruins that has been happening so far. We welcome in Will Decker from the LAFB Network, host of the Bruin Bible over there, my go-to UCLA podcast right now. Will, it's great to have you here. What has impressed you the most about what DeShaun Foster has been able to do in such a short period of time, right? The Chip Kelly departure to Ohio State really happened in February, not after not only one signing period, but two signing periods, and then right in the middle of the winter portal.
When you get a guy like DeShaun Foster in there, you know, I'll be honest, I think the coach, the fan base didn't believe he would be the first choice, just given not his experience as a coordinator, not having any head coaching experience prior to that. But, I mean, you look at what he's doing right now and the surge he's putting on in recruiting, how they've surrounded him with his staff, to kind of shape his coaching methods moving forward. And yet he's not played a game yet. I want to clarify that with everybody. But in the first 3 to 4 month span, I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find a guy who's doing a better job at rebuilding a program such as UCLA than like the former running back himself, Mr. DeShaun Foster, man. So it has been a crazy current of events going on since then. We've had basically a lot of emergency podcasts since then on the Bruin Bible, but most of them have been for very good reasons. So very optimistic, I think, is the best word to describe it with DeShaun Foster. And how can you not be when you see what this recruiting's going on, Ted?
The four letters, that's what they talk about in Westwood all the time, the pride in UCLA. How important do you believe is it that DeShaun Foster has that connection and love for this university? Because UCLA could maybe be viewed as that program that coaches get on to maybe jump to a bigger job, but DeShaun clearly believes that this is his end game and this is truly where he wants to be.
Man, I live by this philosophy because we were speaking a little bit before. I do some sales on the side too, and it's not the ice, it's the Eskimo that sells it. Am I right on that?
Yep.
So DeShaun Foster, you talk about a guy that truly loves UCLA. I mean, you watch the introductory press conference, He is wiping away tears, saying like, listen, like, this is my dream job. And you've seen that take place. So
talk about the move from Chip Kelly to DeShaun Foster. I thought I read or heard somewhere that immediately when that move was made, a lot of donations and a lot more support kind of came into the program after Chip decided to move to Ohio State, which we know is way more important now than it used to be. It all comes down to the almighty dollar, it seems like nowadays, to bring in that type of talent. Let's talk about that talent that UCLA has been able to bring in. I want to first talk about the quarterback position, right? Because one 4-star is already in town. Another 4-star for the 25 class already might be coming as well. We talk about Demarcius Davis from Washington. He was a Kalen DeBoer commit, and then Demond Williams came over with Jed Fish, and it looked like Demond was maybe taking control of that battle. And Demarcius, still a very good player, still a very good prospect, 4-star. Now he ends up transferring, going over to Westwood. And then you look at Madden Amelieva, a 2025 Steve Wiltfong prediction at on 3 to land at UCLA. My question to you is this: when it comes to the quarterback specifically, and we can kind of branch off into the offense as a whole, how important is Eric Bieniemy being on this staff to winning some of these big recruiting battles on offense?
Man, I think it's huge. And I mean, if you remember, we were floating out ideas on who could be the next head coach. I put Bieniemy as one of those people that could be the next head coach, not even offensive coordinator, because you look at his resume and what he's done in the NFL. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs under Andy Reid. He was the guy that, helped mold Mahomes into kind of what he is today in a lot of regards. He was the offensive coordinator there through his first couple of years as a starter. Travis Kelce, things like that. Yeah. And, kids care about that. They want to have validation that you can get them to the highest level. I think that's for anybody in any industry, right? Like, can you take me from A to B? I'm looking for a mentor that can guide me to where I want to go. I want to go to the NFL. When you have Eric Bieniemy legitimately in there going, I know what it takes. Yep. I've worked in the NFL for 20 plus years. I've worked with the best quarterback that's still playing today in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. He was the running backs coach for Adrian Peterson back in the day. So, like, when you have these kind of credits to your name, your Kelce's, your Mahomes, your Adrian Peters, Tyreek Hills, what offensive player would not want to go play for those guys? You know what I mean? And I got to give credit to DeShaun and our athletic director, Martin Jarman, for surrounding him with a lot of just pro knowledge and guys that can essentially elevate these players to their highest potential, like the offensive line coach, another Andy Reid disciple, this time more so with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
Juan Castillo went there for about 15 years, played a huge role in developing Jason Kelce, who a lot of people believe is the best center we've had in a long time. Jason Peters, who might be getting a gold jacket here at some point for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you got Tim White, our quarterbacks coach, who was just with the Houston Texans a couple of years ago, played in the NFL himself. You have these guys that, the high school kid, the high-level recruit, is going to be tapping in on, how can you make me better? How can we get to this level?
UCLA moving to the Big Ten. Of course, that's what we want to talk about in this show. What do you believe is the recruiting potential in the recruiting ceiling for UCLA in the Big Ten? Because they're just getting started, and they're pulling in 4-star quarterbacks. They're pulling in 4-star running backs. They're doing a really good job. You got to think that a couple years of this, and this could continue to progress and go forward.
I could not agree more. And, UCLA, to me and my co-host Jamal Madney, we believe it has always been a sleeping giant, relative to what it could potentially be in college football, because we go to the practice facility, man, and I'm not even joking. This is where Tom Brady trained in the offseason. Christian McCaffrey was there. I got to meet DK Metcalf covering the team last year, just on the sidelines hanging out. All the pros come out to UCLA's facilities, which are really nice. It's called the Wasserman Center. Yep. So you have top-notch facilities there. You're on the West Coast. You don't have to deal with snow. I think if you can bring some of these Big Ten kids, in this environment, your Michigans, your Wisconsins, your Ohio kids, out there on a December, January trip to Los Angeles, California, I think the place is going to sell itself. Not to mention, it's the number one public university in the world right now with what UCLA's got going on.
Let's move on to the story of maybe last week, where it was revealed that UCLA has to pay University of California $10 million. They're not in the same conference, but they are in the same university system. Calimony, right, is the hot term that everybody's talking about it. How do you expect that to affect, if any, UCLA football and maybe overall UCLA athletics? Because UCLA, unlike Oregon and Washington, UCLA and USC are both coming into the Big Ten as full share members, which is fairly unprecedented, by the way. Do you see any effect that this will have on athletics and football as a whole?
This could really end ugly. And what I mean by that is the UC Regents ruled that you had to pay Cal $10 million. Yeah. This is not a national court system. This is not, the United States government ordering somebody to pay $10 million. So if UCLA chooses to extend this out and try to be like, hey, we're not even going to pay you guys a dime, we're going to get this figured out, they have every right to exercise that. You know what I mean? So if they want to continue to keep this going, it could be something very acrimonious, if you will, down the line. But I think in a lot of ways, they're just ready to get to Big Ten football. Sure. If it takes forking that over, which, hey, that is a ton of money to fork over to the Cal Bears in that situation. But if they're just ready to move on as a whole and just, pay up the full dose, 3 years at $30 million, I think would probably be something that the Regents would look forward to. The big question here is we got a new chancellor on campus starting next year. Chancellor Gene Block is retiring. The new chancellor is really going to have to, figure out what he wants to do with that situation. So until he really steps into office, which is going to be about June, July, we don't really have a finite answer on how UCLA is going to approach the situation, if they're going to pay it fully or they're going to extend it out. It's very interesting for the people on the outside because Cal and UCLA were so lockstep for so many years, and it's gotten to a point where I like a lot of the people in charge of Cal and UCLA, they can't even be in the same room anymore.
Payouts to the Big Ten, you're looking in the $50, the $60 million range. At least that's what it was a few years back, and that's going to continue to rise. Once you get into the 2028 range, 2029, it could be upwards because UCLA is a full share member. $90 million, $100 million. So that $10 million, although it is very valuable, could be maybe in a few years a little bit of a drop in the bucket. I'm sure the Bruins will be just fine. I want to talk about, before we let you go, I want to talk about this season because UCLA might be a team, when you look at this from maybe Big Ten fans or maybe fans from a national perspective, they look at it from 10,000 feet. Well, UCLA is replacing a coach with a running backs coach, a new staff. But when you look at how UCLA has retained, they are in the top 30 in the country in returning talent next season, returning production, I should say, next season. Ethan Garber's at quarterback. Okay. Although it was a musical chair at times for many different reasons for the Bruins last season, Garber's looked good, right, in spurts. TJ Harden ran really hard. I watched that USC game. I was very impressed what he was able to do, the young running back. And then you look at J. Michael Sturdivant. If he can be more consistent, he can be a really good receiver. You look at Logan Loya coming back and Rico Flores from Notre Dame. All of a sudden you look around, oh, wait a minute. There's some talent here on offense. Maybe the defense has some stuff to replace losing a coordinator and losing a lot of talent. But what's kind of your overall outlook and maybe the fan expectations for the Bruins in the first year in the Big Ten?
Man, it is really intriguing what we saw in spring practice. Ethan Garbers is running away with this starting job. And to kind of paint a picture, a year ago, they had 5-star Dante Moore come in here. And you know, it was, he just got a ton of NIL money. I know the boosters were pining for us to play Dante Moore. So we kind of had to like do a Tom Brady, Drew Henson type of situation, put a Big Ten term on it. Ethan Garbers was outstanding, man. I mean, if you look at what he was able to do in really his first year of sustained starts, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And I talked about this the other night. The 3 things you want from a quarterback coming into their first situation and how they build confidence moving forward. How'd they do in the rivalry game? Did they go to a bowl game? Did they win the bowl game?
Sure.
Did they play well in a long stretch of time? You can check all 3 of those boxes with Ethan Garbers. I think Garbers is going to surprise a lot of people if he gets the time. You know, I think the area where Big Ten football is at its best, and you know this, man, it's the lines, man. It's the trenches. Like, if you can get the lines right, and they have added 2 transfers in the offensive line, from the portal. If you can add maybe another guy there, or edge rusher or 2 coming out for UCLA, I think this team can, win 6-7 games and maybe an 8th or 7th or 8th in a bowl game-like environment. The defense is better than I think people expect. I mean, you're obviously not going to replace Aliatu Latu. Right. Olufemi Oladejo, ironically, another former Cal transfer that came down. Really solid linebacker. I think he's going to make some waves in next year's NFL draft. The secondary, a lot of veteran players out there that have been in the program for a long time. Our secondaries coach, Cody Whitfield, has made a huge jump with coaching that area, which was an Achilles heel for a long time for Chip Kelly. It's a lot of great stuff going on. I think the ceiling of this team in the regular season is 6 to 7 wins. If they can achieve that and DeShaun can keep up this pressure on recruiting, sky's the limit for UCLA if they want it, man. It's going to come down to this year and how they perform, though.
It's going to be fun to watch the Bruins, their first year in the Big Ten Conference. I will say this. If I'm a high school kid, all you got to tell me is world-class university, Los Angeles, and you get to play in the Rose Bowl, I'm there. I'm in Westwood. And there goes the mic. That's how excited I am about playing for the UCLA Bruins. All right, Will, thanks for joining us today, and we're excited to maybe have you on in the future. It's going to be a great year of Big Ten football.
Ted, you are the absolute man. Thank you so much for having me on. This is a fantastic show, and look forward to hopefully coming on again soon.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.